Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Self-Publishing Tips and Tricks Show, a series designed to give you insight into the world of self-publishing and marketing your books. I'm Shannon, writing under the pen name S.C. Huston, and I'm here today with my co-hosts.
I'm Ben Pick.
And I'm Morgan Lee.
And we're here today with author and poet J.D. Estrada. We're going to ask him some questions about his self-publishing journey and how he markets his work. But before we jump into their interview, do you guys have any news or points of interest that you might want to talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. By the time this video comes out, I will have published my debut novel. So I'm really excited for that. And yeah, I will be posting all kinds of information about it on my channel elsewhere. But let's get on with this interview. Morgan?
Well, that's exciting. For me, I'm not sure what I have going on, but if I'm lucky, I'm gearing up to publish book 2 in my trilogy, which will hopefully come out in September. So you can look forward to the rest of that trilogy coming out in a few months.
Awesome. Yeah, I definitely look forward to that because, I've been, a part of your process. So it's kind of always cool to be part of the process of an author and seeing that work come to fruition. And then hopefully I will have had a chance to arc read your new novel that's coming out. So I don't really have a clue where I'm going to be, what I'm going to be doing August 15th, other than I know I'm going to be writing and probably exchanging critique pages with Morgan. I think we'll probably still be doing that at that point. But currently right now, my book, the last book in my trilogy, comes out tomorrow as of this recording. Of course, this is going to be in the future, so it'll already have been out. But I'm looking forward to that and seeing how all my marketing strategies are working, which hopefully we'll be able to talk about that in the next podcast. And it's going to be a little bit in the future. I'll be able to talk a little bit about how that marketing worked and what I did exactly. All right, so we are going to move into talking about our guest author for today. Although J.D. Estrada currently resides in Atlanta, Georgia, home shall always be Puerto Rico. With 19 published works and many more on the way, Estrada likes to explore a variety of genres, including urban fantasy, middle grade, poetry, nonfiction, and horror in both English and Spanish. Because if variety is the spice of life, then let things be spicy. Beyond books, he is also a creative ambassador with a sock collection that borders on the ludicrous and is the original banana secret agent, #00 bananas. If you don't know what that is, check out the hashtag on Instagram for something silly. Hi, welcome, JD. How are you doing?
All good. Greetings, fellow humans. Thank you for that lovely intro. And
Well,
I woke up a bit late, so you guys are gonna get this slightly raspy voice. So I think I got a good sexy tone going on
there
today.
you go. You'll mesmerize our audience. So would you please take a moment to tell us a little bit about yourself and let us know about that #00 bananas?
Okay, I've been at this since 2003. People ask me, what writing courses did I take in college? And I say the ones that I had in English class. It's like, okay, so did you major in literature? I'm like, I majored in psychology, marketing, and advertising. And it's like, does your day job have anything to do with writing? Yes and no, because I work in advertising. I've worked in advertising, marketing, and communications and public relations. So it's all writing related. And something that teaches you is to, at times, be succinct, which I suck at when it comes at talking because I talk so much. And to work fast. I've known to work at a place where I was assigned, if I'm not mistaken, it was either 15 or 16 accounts. And I was the sole copywriter to work with a group of 3 artists and then another group of 2 artists and then with another single artist. So I always have a lot of, things going on. And then one day, someone invited me to write on a blog. I had always been writing there, poetry, essays, stuff like that, just jotting down stuff, processing stuff. And then I wrote on that blog and I got an itch and I had an audience and we got a little bit of notoriety for that blog. But within that blog, I wrote like a short story here, a short story there of stuff it began being like, just regular fiction. And then I wrote something super whimsical. Someone was like, I really like that. And I'm like, so I got the crazy notion that I could write a novel. And then I saw a commercial for Underworld, and I was like, I can write something better than that, like super snarky, super just douchey. So sat down, did an outline, began writing, and from that just silly inception, it's become a very personal work that has a lot of me, and it's my exploration of humanity through fiction. I have a fixation with the number 4. At one point, it was going to be 4 books, and then while writing, so many things course corrected because my gut was like, no, you got to do this, and you got to do that, and you got to do that. It's got to be 3 books. I'm like, but a trilogy is so cliche. And since it's the exploration of humanity, first I explore the effects of the adventure and our hero and the hero's journey in the body, then the mind, and I'm currently working on the 3rd book, which explores the spiritual aspect. So that's just urban fantasy. First time I participated in the Puerto Rico Comic Con was 2014, and I was like, I can't just go with one book. So I went with one book, and I had a poetry collection called Between the Tides, and I had middle grade short stories called The Daydreams on the Sherbet Shore. Those first editions, we literally printed them out, and me and my in-laws, like all my family, we sat down at a table, hole punched it, tied it with little strings, and sold pamphlets of those short stories for the first time. And that has evolved drastically. And it's a great way for me to have started out, because I had urban fantasy with like angels, demons, and vampires that don't sparkle. I had poetry with the ups and highs and low tides of life, and I had a whimsical short story collection. So from the get go, it's like, okay, this guy was not a one trick pony, which is very important for me to always convey. And let's see what he has to say. And from that there are people that have been following me and going to my booth since 2014. I can't appreciate it enough. People have no idea. I still keep in touch with a lot of people that have come to my booth. It's pretty simple to keep in touch. Send a message and I'll reply. And from there, it's just, what different soul well do I want to explore? And it's pushed me to stuff that I would have never considered. And I don't get bored.
Well, I wrote that cliche trilogy, by the way.
People bash it. And the thing is that in hindsight, the only reason I wouldn't have started with a trilogy is very simple. It's not because I don't believe in the format of a trilogy. It's not because I don't believe in the story that I wrote. It's because people go like, okay, so when you have the third one, I'll buy them all. And it's like, that's not how it works.
I've heard that quite a bit from mine as well. Even I go to a massage therapist regularly because, sitting at a computer all day, your shoulders get tense. And she was like, yeah, I'll buy them all once you finish it. I'm like, okay. But yeah, so I think that's interesting. You have your background in psychology. So you talk about the human experience in your book. So that hits on that. Then you have a background in marketing, and advertising basically, and that helps being a writer as well. So you got all the right backgrounds there to be a good writer.
People say, why don't I do more ads and stuff? And since it's my day job,
You're like, that's no.
I know it can be effective. I know I should do it, but part of me wants the work to speak for itself. And, it's not like I sell droves of books, but when people get to talk to me, they go like, okay, this guy has something to say. Then they browse the book and they go, oh, this is pretty cool. And they pick up the book. It's just that getting those opportunities in Puerto Rico was a challenge. And then when I came stateside, work was just super crazy. And then I went to an event and it was a bust because there's so much competition here.
So about that hashtag 00 bananas, where did that come from?
Okay, so 00 bananas, I'm a banana secret agent. So a brief summary. Basically, this is like my little tribute to Charlie Chaplin and being a big kid, because they're always silent. I never speak in these videos. They're a minute or less long so that it fits in a reel, but also because I enjoy that short format. You establish a scene, you have the intro that says 00 bananas. I pop out of somewhere, I do something silly with a banana, I nod to the camera, I walk off. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of silliness. And it began because me trying to cheer up coworkers. At that time, I was in a corner, I was working, and then everyone was like, the gargoyle mode and just like, working. And then I would call, one of my coworkers and I would go, yo, and they would look, and then I would have the banana. I go like, yeah. And then we would get back to work. So that eventually I decided to do a video, and I did another, and I did another. And then after Hurricane Maria passed, my mom actually told me that one day in a phone call, she's like, do you know that both of your nephews are always looking forward to Friday to see your 00 bananas video? And I'm like, okay, so it's become a responsibility. Me just being a jack has become a responsibility. Plus, the amount of times that I've gotten a message from people saying, dude, you have no idea how much I needed that silly smile that you just gave me. So that in and of itself has been like fuel to the fire to just keep making it out of myself.
Can you tell us about your journey to publishing your first book?
So everyone says, or you can see it in several places, that you should research the publishing house that you want to get and the agents that you want to get. And I did that. I identified 2 publishing houses that I thought would be good fits for the human cycle. I identified 2 agents in each. I wrote a very meticulously crafted, personalized message to each of those 4 people. And I didn't even get a no. So basically I was faced with the option of persevering with this single project, which is a noble cause if there ever was one. You just have the main example that people quote is J.K. Rowling. She got rejected by, I think it was 12 publishers, whatnot. I know people who have been rejected by 50, and then they get picked up. And for some people, it's a success story. For some people, it's actually a hurdle. And so I was faced with either that or do my thing on my own terms to show the exact vision of what I'm willing to do and interested in doing. When you work in advertising, having your initial idea and your initial concept concept survive from point A to point Z is borderline impossible. It is a lot of creativity through democracy. Sometimes it's a dictatorship, and a lot of times, sometimes it's internal, and sometimes you present it to a client, and the client says, "I love it, but let's tweak this and this, and this," and then you go like, the essence of what it was gets lost. So since I work in advertising, and I already mentioned that I've worked on several accounts and several categories, and it happens across the board. It's crazy. I was like, I want to do my thing. I want to show what I have to tell. I don't want to limit myself. Sometimes people focus on sci-fi or horror or fantasy or urban fantasy or romance or whatever. And for me, part of what drives me is to push myself creatively in as many ways as possible. So the freedom to do that was to publish independently. Uphill, you learn a lot of stuff on the way, and it's just who I am now and my process now versus what it was 10 years ago. Two different people. And beyond that, the people that you meet, the fellow indies that you meet from across the world, it is extremely rewarding. Am I willing to go to a publishing house? That's a yes, but it's with certain projects. The Human Cycle, that's mine. The Adventures and Given to Fly, that's mine. I will not allow anyone at all to come near to those concepts because they're very near and dear to me. There are 4 other manuscripts that I am outlining or working on that I will shop around because I am willing to adjust, to edit, to adapt, to tweak, and to work with people. Those, it's not that I'm not emotionally invested, it's that they're not as intimate. Let's call it that.
So the decision seemed a little bit easier for you to decide whether you were going to go self-published or traditionally published. So did you have anything that you were hesitant about or that hindered you from self-publishing? Kind of Shannon's question too. Did any misconceptions that might have hindered you from self-publishing?
Anyone who's starting out is going to start out with misconceptions, and reality is just going to slap you in the face, or sometimes it's going to shake your hand. Stuff that were misconceptions. Okay, say that you on your Facebook profile or your Instagram profile have 200, 300, 600 people. You think, oh, so at least X or Y% of people are going to read that. That's not a reality. The reality is that you will connect with new people, and eventually people that you know will give you a break. People that you grew up with are not going to read you from the get-go. It's possible. For some people, that is actually how it happens. For me, and there's no rhyme or reason of what people are going to like or not, and that changes from book to book and from show to show. In Puerto Rico, I consistently sell out of my urban fantasy of Only Human. I was running low on Shadow of a Human, which was a first for that one, which was super cool. I normally sell out of my middle grade. Those are like the 3 that always across the board sell. Here in Atlanta, I have a collection that's called Dark Strands, and it's more of an Edgar Allan Poe vibe to it. That is the book that sold the most, and it's thin. It's thin to the point that people have questioned the price because of how thin it is. And I always say, if you want to read it, by all means, go for it. And on one occasion, a fellow person in the convention from another booth came by, and they saw this. How much is this? And I say $10. And they go, but it's really thin. And I go like, by all means, read it. So she proceeded to not only read it, but it's like she finished the poem. Okay, tearing the page. She read the entire thing in front of me. It took her about 40 minutes. And other people would come to the booth, so I would talk to them, and then I would see her from the corner of my eye. So I was kind of freaking out because this is like a real-time review. She finished it, she liked it, and she bought it. And I'm like, I can't get better praise than that. And again, that's something that I wrote. People go like, why would you go to the comic convention with poetry? And I'm like, because people read poetry. And I love comics. I love graphic novels. Neil Gaiman is my favorite author, and also the one that I've read the most. And I've read the most in novels and in graphic works. And it never seems like he limits himself. And I was like, I want to do a poetry collection because poetry means so much to me. As it helped me cope with so much when I was a teen that I just wanted to push it in different directions. And it's been super fun to do. So first off, you don't know who's going to read you. So have no expectations. If you could have aspirations, you could have goals, you can have milestones that you want to hit. But going like, yeah, I think this is going to happen is a perfect recipe for the opposite or something completely unexpected to happen. Second off, the cost. People say it costs nothing to self-publish. That is complete BS. That is complete BS. This is all on my time, my dime, everything. So this banner, I had to pay for that. The printing of the books, I have to pay for that. Shipping of the books, I have to pay for that. If the suitcase goes overweight in the airport, which has happened, you have to pay for that. To get the covers that I want, you have to pay for that. There are a lot of things that are free And there are a lot of things that cost money. The advertising, what I do, I've never bought an ad. Maybe this is the year I finally changed that, just to give it a try. But everything that I do in terms of connections is organic. That's why some posts get like 20 likes or 30 likes, and then there's one post that gets like 100 likes, and I go like, what hashtag did I use? So that's another misconception, and also it's the evolution of the process of putting your work out there. My reality in 2014 and 2015 is very different from 2022, not just because of the pandemic, just because of how things go. And currently in Puerto Rico, there is a big boom of independent authors just rising. When I was doing it, I was like the only one going to with books, not with comics. There have always been, or there have been comic creators for a long time, but I was taking my books to a comic convention. So, and people were like, "Is that a good idea?" And I'm like, "I don't know, but I got to try." And I think that's the biggest lesson with the entire process. Oftentimes you just got to try and give something a go. And if it's enjoyable, keep doing it. And if it has results, keep doing it. And if those two things overlap, keep doing it.
That's really cool. It's really cool. And as you mentioned, you've written urban fantasy, middle grade fantasy, poetry, like your book that the woman was ecstatic about, nonfiction, and even a bilingual collection. And I mean, even going into the mindset of the display, the banner you have behind you. I mean, what led you to the decision to diverse so drastically between genres? I don't want to call it advertisement, but between making your own banner and celebrating your novels that way.
Well, this banner was actually made by the same artist from the covers of the books. A really good friend, and since I work in advertising, you meet a lot of artists and a lot of really talented people with good hearts. And the collaboration that I've been able to achieve with a lot of people has been through those connections. And if it's 12, if it's midnight, and you have someone's back, eventually they go like, "Dude, you need a cover for your book." Stuff like that happens. In terms of diversity, if you see how the books that I read, if you see the video games that I play, if you see any of my playlists in terms of music, how I start and how it progresses, it's a smorgasbord of WTF. I can have salsa, I can have reggae. I am a 90s child, I have Pro Jam, Soundgarden. I'm a super 90s guy. How I dress as well. Every time I wear plaid, it's like, a uniform. So limiting myself in terms of what I write is not something that is conducive to my joy. And also, since I've worked on so many accounts, that means I've worked pharma, healthcare, automotive, consumer packaged goods, fast food, spirits and beer, events, rentals, banking, mortgage, and the list goes on and on. I might have cracked working with over 100 designers and artists in my career. So you have to get to know people. You have to tap into different things. The conversations are different. The dynamics are different. And I like that. I like synergy. I like combining different things. I like mashing things up. I say that the human cycle is urban fantasy, but there are some chapters that almost feel middle grade, and there's some chapters that almost feel horror. The thing is that urban fantasy is like the fantastic version of what we live in real life, and it's the closest to what I do in these books. So limiting myself has never been an option. I've never been interested professionally, personally. I don't care your age, your gender, your sexuality, your race. I don't care anything. As long as you're a good person and want to connect, I will happily have a conversation. I've been in places where an older woman she's having a boring time. I say a comment and she goes like, "Oh, there's banter to be had." And we have a great conversation in the line at the post office or at the bank. So that's just me, and it applies to my work as well. Because again, why limit ourselves? I always have a hard time because people say, "Oh, I can't." There's a lot of people that say, "Oh, I can't write," and I'm like, "Why?" "Oh, I've just never done it." And I'm like, that's the first hurdle. After you put pencil to paper or fingers to keyboard, you already did the first major step. And the second is, I know a lot of people that focus on one genre, and then I have a block. I never have a block. I'm fatigued. I'm frustrated because I don't have enough time, but I never have a block. I might go like, I'm not feeling it, but it's not that I don't know where the story is going to go. It's that, man, I'm just tired. My energy is low, but the ideas are still churning there. You need capture tools, and you get ideas every single day and every single hour and every single minute. So I see something in the street and I go like, that would be a great middle grade story, or that would make a great title for an urban fantasy book. In my walks, and there I have to cross a bridge over a river. There's like this hole in the middle when the water's clear, and it's creepy as. And I'm like, I'm going to write that in a horror story. By allowing myself to write whatever I want, it just opens up possibilities, and that always makes me smile.
So, publishing on Mother's Day is a tradition that you've kept for many years. How did this start, and how do you plan what content you'll publish on Mother's Day?
Okay, first off, my author name is a tribute to mom. You say it in Spanish, J de Estrada. It sounds like you're saying Estrada's J, but I'm Estrada's little J. One day in 2015, I was like, I want to publish something for Mother's Day, no matter what. Showing love for parents is something that is not usual for a lot of guys, and men having emotions. Oh Lord, that is so scary. I'll always love mom. Mom passed away in 2019, and even before that, it's something that I always wanted to do just as a tribute. What gets published sometimes is what's in the pipeline. Other times it is with a lot more purpose. Last year was with a lot of purpose. I actually published Ballads of Hope and Joy. This is a positive poetry collection. I wanted to do something light because we're living through some intense times, period. So I wanted to include a poetry collection that the idea is that you flip it, you read the poem that's on the left and on the right, and you get like a shot of positivity. There's a poem about Bob Ross because I was a big fan. I am a big fan. And the cover has these wonderful flowers because I wanted it to look like a Mother's Day gift. So this one was really, it has to be published on Mother's Day because yada, yada, yada. This year, I was finally able to publish the all English version of my bilingual collection. We can get into that later. But one of the promises that I made to mom is that I was going to do an all English and all Spanish version of that collection. A lot of people ask me for my works either in English, well, mostly in Spanish because most of my work is in English. Doing those projects is just me understanding what it takes to make a translation to the level that I'm not only comfortable with, but proud of. People think, Google Translate, good. I've read a book that was thrown in a text translator and was not edited and it was not proofed and it was awful. The book was about 148 pages, something like that. It took me like a year and a half to finish and I slammed it because it's borderline illegible and you would have to retranslate what you're seeing just to get the message in English. And that's something that I hadn't seen since I was a mentor in college for English courses, for English students. I would get to like the fourth sentence and I'm like, this used a text translator. So I would put a line there. And I'm like, I read until here. Talk to me, F. And then the person would come and I'm like, did you use a text translator? I'm like, and they're like, yeah. I'm like, did you check it? They're like, no. And I'm like, that's why I can't grade this because this is, you can't even understand this. Tense because from English to Spanish, it's fine. I can do that. That's actually what I'm doing now. And it's hard because you want to maintain the rhythm and the wordplay and different moments and different beats. That's fine. It's doable. Translating my Spanish to English, a text translator is not going to help you because I realized how Puerto Rican I write in those stories because I was trying to use it in the essays and the short stories. You can use a text translator just to accelerate the process, but you have to read the entire thing. You have to take it sentence by sentence, then read the entire thing. Whatever's there, if I can do it with purpose to publish for Mother's Day, I will. If not, it's what's on cue. The main thing is that I publish something for Mother's Day. It's important to me. It shall always be important. Mom passed away 3 years ago. Still, it's going to be important until the day I die.
That is absolutely a beautiful tribute. And I completely understand the translation issues. I've seen a lot of times where you translate it from one language to another, and then you try and translate it back and see how well it matches. One way of trying to get around that harsh but fair grading system. Anyways, at last month's AuthorTube writing conference, you talked about how people wonder what genre they must write in as if there's only one choice. What advice would you give to our listeners if they are hesitant about writing and publishing in multiple genres?
If you're going to do it, you just have to be comfortable that you're not going to get maybe the results or the connections that you want. A lot of people gravitate toward X or Y author because they specialize in the genre. From the get-go, I started publishing wide in terms of genre because that's what drives me and that's part of who I am. If it's part of your identity, embrace it. Do it your way. I always say that one of my greatest inspirations is David Bowie, not because of content, but because of style. David Bowie, his entire career, he did what he wanted, not what was popular, not what was trendy. It was, I like that groove. He would go with it. And no matter what he did, it always sounded like Bowie. And for me, although I'm no David Bowie in the publishing industry, for me, it's very important that whether you read my poetry, my fiction, my nonfiction, my posts, my little quips that I do on Twitter, that you go like, that is such a him thing to say, because I've realized that sticks with people. Authenticity sticks with people a lot more than quality, I've realized, or at least that's my way of approaching it. I have people that I hadn't seen in 20 years go like, dude, do you remember when you said this? And I was like, I was 16. And it's like, yeah, I still remember. Authenticity and and being unique, it's a trip because you get remembered for the things that you would go like, really, that's the memorable part of my story, or my trajectory, and you never know, and it's such a great opportunity to get unique stories. And I love stories. I love collecting stories and I love writing stories. And being unique and doing your own thing is just going to lead to more stories. So do your thing. You do you. And eventually you will find your tribe and you will find your audience. And for me, that is way more gratifying. Obviously, I want to sell 1 million books. Obviously, I want to get reviews every week, every day. It's not a reality. But people who read me normally sign up for the long run. And I really enjoy that. And I really enjoy people who read the different genres that I write in and they go like, oh, I like this, but I love this. And that for me is so human and so beautifully human, because it just goes to show that we connect differently with different people. And again, don't limit yourself. Have fun. If you're up for the challenge and if you're up for it, because it is a challenge and it is a grind to be okay with getting 3 reviews for a poetry collection and getting 35 reviews for your fiction. And it's accepting and loving each work for what it is.
So from your point of view, what has been your greatest publishing success so far?
That people go like, oh, okay, what else are you gonna publish? And they actually encourage me to go wider and crazier. I think the greatest success is just, I've done this on my own dime with my own effort. I've done connections. This is a good example of networking and just connecting with different authors. But it's always been like this. There's no hand-me-downs. There's no VIP treatment because you know someone. There's no shortcuts. Everything that I've been able to achieve has been because I've put in the time, I've put in the effort, and I've put in a lot of who I am and of my soul in the work that I do. And that people respond to that in the US, in Puerto Rico, Mexico, Spain, Germany, Norway, Nepal, India, Philippines, just because you're being your authentic self. That's very gratifying because it shows that even though I'm not a bestseller or a multi-million-dollar author yet, what I do connects. There are few things that are more gratifying than connecting with people because of your authentic self.
I think that we can all hope to aspire to that one day. I know I would.
Pushing for it, one book at a time.
So what has been your least favorite part of your indie writing to publishing journey?
There are some people that I've written about this on the blog. It's transactional relationships. They make a contact with you because they're interested in something. Either it's a review from you or a sale or a connection that you have. And there are some people like that. It's not the norm. It hasn't been my norm. I've met a lot of people, and I've met a lot of people that I call friend and even family. I have a mug from Go Indie Now. Go Indie Now is run by Joe Compton. Joe Compton is a brother from another mother. When you get to a point where you can have a phone call with someone, it's like, dude, are you okay? And you have like a 1-hour conversation. That's wonderful. But on the flip side, you have people that don't care. And you have people that go like, let's exchange 5-star reviews. And I'm like, I'm not interested. I'm interested in a review. I'm not interested in a guaranteed 5-star review. On Goodreads, not on Amazon, because they'll pull them down and lock my account. But on Goodreads, I've read and reviewed my work. And it's been either a 3-star or a 4-star. I've never given myself a 5-star. And I don't think I'll ever give myself a 5-star. And I do that to keep myself honest and to keep myself pushing. And so that people, when they get a 4-star or a 3-star, they don't bitch. It's like, dude, it's an honest review. I'm going to give you an honest review. Some people are not interested in the honest review. So that's been an unsavory part of the aspect. And also self-doubt. Sometimes people say, oh, how have you published 19 books? And I'm like, the way that I defeat self-doubt is to keep busy. And they go like, but you've published 19 books. And I'm like, a lot of self-doubt. There's a lot of questioning. There's a lot of going like, am I going to make it? Am I making the right decisions? And that can happen anywhere. You have to cope with it. And it's putting yourself out there. I think a lot of people fear that first negative review, but I think more than a negative review, I fear indifference. And when you get crickets chirping, that not only stings, it causes you to worry, like, am I doing something wrong? So it's just those days where you don't feel on top of the world. Other aspects is when you have to deal with different people who distribute your books. I've had good stories and bad stories. I've had a lot of bad stories where people, for a service that was offered back home, I was one of the people that they pushed initially with other indie authors. And basically we helped promote and do that for like 6 months. And after that, I didn't matter at all. They wouldn't answer my emails. They wouldn't answer my phone calls. They wouldn't pay. These are things that you have to be emotionally prepared for. Having to act almost like a loan shark to get paid for the books that you've sold at a bookstore. That's something that I've lived through, and it's something that is extremely frustrating because you put in the work, you made the work, you send in the books, you push to sell through them, and you agree to let them have a slice of the pie, and still they don't want to give you even a fraction of the pie. It's like, dude, between that and Amazon Amazon is a triple-edged sword. It is easy to use, although the last book I wanted to strangle KDP because it was just so problematic for stupid reasons. Stuff that shouldn't have happened and shouldn't have been that difficult. It was extremely difficult. Just getting your cover to work. And oh no, you need more space between your title and the spine. It's like, dude, just print it. Give me a checkbox and I'll take the mistake. I don't care. Just print the damn thing. So those days, it's not fun. I can't say the most because depending on the day, it's just going to be either not as bad or the worst.
Yeah, I can absolutely sympathize. I'm always suspicious of books that have nothing but 5-star reviews. So that's brave of you to willingly rate your novel as you see fit. Are you comfortable discussing any publishing missteps or things which you would have liked to done differently?
We're here to share and to learn from each of our experiences. I don't know if I would call it a misstep, but stuff that I've definitely addressed. The first book I published was Only Human. Okay, listen to this. Heavy book. It's a big book. Printing this book costs a lot of money. Shipping this book costs a lot of money. And probably every time that I sell one of the copies, I either break even, earn very little, or lose money. So it's just stuff that you learn along the way. I wouldn't call it a misstep. I would call it something that just happened. And I'm not going to limit myself or my word count or my page count just for that. But I did have to do some adjustments to this one just so that it wouldn't be cost prohibitive. Right now, I'm holding up my book. And if you see the font is Bible worthy. It's small. The book is 154,000 words. The font that I always use Bookman Old Style. It's just, I was doing a search for fonts and I don't want Arial. I don't want Helvetica. I don't want like Times or something like that. A lot of people use Garamond. And then I stumble upon Bookman and I checked all the symbols and I'm like, I like this. This has an old feel, but it's not too bad. But it does take more space. It's not like Calibri. If you use that font, you can do like 100,000 word manuscript, 8x5, and it would be what, 350 pages, something like that. You know, using this font, it's just bigger. And I learned that. Still, I'm sticking to that font because I really like that font. Another misstep was the show that I did here in Atlanta. Some people might be tempted to think they're high and mighty and they're going to conquer the world, etc. I had a show here in Atlanta in July, and I was trying to keep myself very grounded. I'm like, I think I'm going to make back the booth or maybe, make this amount of money, and that's speculation. That show, I sold 18 books, 3 days. There's several factors that play into this. First off, how the event is organized. The Puerto Rico Comic-Con, you have to buy your ticket in advance. If you're going to get a signed autograph opportunity, you have to buy it in advance as well. Why is this a good thing? Because when people go to the event, they're going to have cash in hand. For the Atlanta Comic-Con, you have to buy the tickets at the place. You could buy them ahead of time, I think, but I'm not sure. And if you were going to get a signed autograph opportunity, anyone, you had to buy it the same day. So say you're a dad, you took 2 of your kids to the event. To get into the place, you have to buy the tickets. They want to see this and that person, $50 a pop. Then they have to buy lunch. So how much money are they going to have on that day? And I was in the middle of the exhibitor area, which in theory you would go like, oh, that's great. But when people would get to my booth, they had run out of money consistently, or they were saying that just to be nice. 2 possibilities. So I would call that not a misstep. It's just something that I hadn't factored in. And I realized why some people, they share booth space for events stateside. And that's something that I just never considered. And also I don't have the rapport with someone here. The only people that I have rapport with, it was going to be for Jordan Con. And because life throws 20,000 curveballs at you, it just didn't happen, which I'm kind of happy this year it didn't happen because it became like COVID Con. About half the people got COVID and I'm like, okay, so I dodged that bullet. But it's just, you had expectations. I had 1 year, I went to Dragon Con, I went to the Atlanta Comic Con, I went to Jordan Con, and I went to another Comic Con here in Atlanta just to gauge and see the different events and see how the dynamic is, see how people are buying, just to try to be responsible in choosing the event that I would participate in. I saw the cost of the Atlanta Comic Con. I thought it made a lot of sense, but it's not like I'm an established author in the Atlanta Comic Con. And second off, the people that go to that event and that type of event are not people that go to Dragon Con, are not people that go to Jordan Con. What do I mean by this? People that go to these other events when they have money to go to the artist alley. People who go to the Atlanta Comic Con, this is the first type of event that they've gone. So they're going to buy overpriced Funko Pops just because it's eye-catching and eye-appealing. And they're going to have a conversation with an indie author from Puerto Rico and go like, well, it would have been nice to support him, but I wanted this Funko Pop that was overpriced. And it's stuff that it's so clear in hindsight because you had a lot of time to think about it.
If you could only pass on one thing to aspiring self-published writers, what would be your best publishing tip or trick?
Do your thing. Do your thing and have fun. There's a post that I repost every so often just to remind myself to always have fun. It's a picture of an apple. It's not an artistic picture of an apple. It's literally an ordinary picture of an apple, and said, "This is a hashtag apple." And it got 31 likes and it has like 12 comments and stuff like that. And there's other stuff that I work on meticulously, but I'm enjoying myself in the process, and it gets half the likes or 20 likes or whatever. And then there's sometimes that they blow up for X or Y reason. The hashtag was trending at that point. So whatever you do, enjoy yourself. And also, when you write, enjoy yourself. When you're editing, when you're proofreading, when you're working on your manuscript, you're going to have to read this several times. Not once, not twice, not 4 times. You have to read it several times. So if it's enjoyable to read the 4th and 5th time, you did something right by yourself and by your audience.
So I think it was funny you were talking about fonts and you specifically pointed out Times New Roman. Because that's what I use. But I think I chose it because I used to teach college English and literature, and that was the easiest for me to read. And I just gravitated toward it.
It is extremely easy to read. My beef with it is that I've worked in so many industries, and I've had to read so many contracts. That was the font that they use. So basically, internally, I'm reading another healthcare contract and I get palpitations and I go like, I can't handle it. It's not that it's a bad font. It's just that it has bad memories tied to it.
Right. All right. So we're going to transition from your publishing life to your marketing. You have over 15 years experience, as you mentioned before, in advertising, communications, and marketing. And I know you said it's not like your favorite thing to do since you do that all day, but how has all that experience informed you on marketing your books?
It's an evolving process, and the things that I do in my day job and that are best practices in advertising are not the same that are best practices in promoting your work. Working across so many categories, you realize that the cookie cutter mentality and the one size fits all mentality will not work and cannot work. I have seen when I have better results, and I see when I don't have the best results. When I rush, I just meet my deadline and publish something, it's not going to have the effect that I want and the sales that I want. If I do it with time, not too much time, but just enough time, and just gauging that, it's an art in and of itself. You start learning, and there might be influences, but at the end of the day, it's always me just trying to find my process to, okay, I'm promoting my work, but I'm doing it in a way that's fun. What are some things that I enjoy doing? Crossword puzzles or word structures, or find the 7 hidden things. And I've done that for my work, and it's been fun. It's a lot of work though, but it's something that I can look back on and I can reshare and still feel cool about it. And the more that I do evergreen stuff, I think the value in that is just endlessly better. Sure, I can talk about my TBR right now, but I shouldn't dedicate as much time to that as something that if you watch today, in a week, in a month, in a year, 5 years, it'll still be relevant. Fortunately, my opinions, they're pretty firm. Yes, I might evolve as a human, but my values as a 20-year-old and as a 40-year-old are pretty much consistent. So what I have to say and an opinion that I have about my writing process can only be fed by experience rather than like a complete 180 change. So focusing on evergreen content and focusing on stuff that I see the value in it. Recently, a fellow author invited me to do a writing class for her class, and I did it in a way that no matter what class and no matter what year, it's going to work. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work. It started from being a short video to being a 40-minute video. So a 40-minute video that you edited and that works, and that I've watched a couple of times, and I go like, damn, I'm kind of proud of that. And that, I think at the end of the day, if you're proud of what you do, you're doing it right. Even if you didn't pay off your student debt and your student loan because of your earnings and your royalties.
So you mentioned attending a lot of conferences. So what have you learned about selling yourself from attending and participating in these conferences that might be able to help our listeners who might be interested in seeing if that is something that they would want to do too?
Go to a lot of events, watch people, and you will see people who are in the red and who are freaking out that they're not getting sales because it's clear. And I had that moment of trepidation until I said, dude, just take the loss and enjoy yourself and meet people. When I did that, I just shift gears to what I was doing at the event, from trying to push my books and whatnot to connecting to people and connecting to fellow authors from the area. Stuff that you can do, and how do you sell yourself? Again, be your authentic self. Doing these chats, as you can see, I have no difficulty starting to talk. It's shutting up and being more brief. That might be a bit of a challenge, but putting yourself out there teaches you so much across the board. I can have a conversation with a person in a crowded exhibitor hall with music playing, and they can hear me and they can understand what I'm saying. You hone how you connect with people. I write a variety of genres. My booth is littered with books. So basically I give an overview. I see, you kind of gauge their reaction and you go like, I think this person might like this. And then based on their reaction, you can either stay on that book, stack on that book, or shift to something that they might enjoy. The advantage that I have is that, I'm not really interested in vampires and demons. And I'm like, that's fine. I write nonfiction because I enjoy nonfiction. And you write nonfiction. And then you start a conversation. It's all about engaging, connecting, and having a conversation. So that's why I also recommend having small talk conversations in the elevator and the bank. In the elevator is great because people don't want to talk. And if you can get like a response from people, you know that your communication skills are being honed in. It's okay to be nervous. It's not okay to not try something. People have asked me how have I gotten book events at different bookstores. I literally went to the bookstore, asked for the manager, asked if it was a possibility. Very respectful, flying low, like, I don't expect you to say yes. If they say yes, when is it convenient? What should I do? So on and so forth. So be genuine, be earnest, and give yourself a try. Because if you don't try, you're never going to find out. I had one book event that not many people went, but the people that got there, Lord, did they show that they wanted to get there, because the torrential rains that were falling in Puerto Rico that day were just nuts. And from the parking to the establishment, there was about 5 or 6 blocks that people had to walk. So people got there and we had a good time. I had a bottle of wine, I had my guitar, I had my books. I waffled on for about an hour and a half, played a couple of songs, read from all my books. And again, I did it in a way that is very me. And I always recommend people do something that even if you fail, you enjoyed, and it was a reflection of who and how you are.
So NIC of advice that says, find your niche, find your genre, stick to it. You've come up with a really good pro for writing across all the genres, which I had never considered, which is, if you don't like this, here, I've got this. So I really appreciate that, because I do want to write in other genres as well later.
Some people use a different pen name. I respect that and I understand the why. For me, what I've realized in terms of how I am is that if I have 2 accounts, one is going to get more attention than the other. So rather than even risk that, I've just conditioned people to go, so you wrote nursery rhymes. Cool, let's check it out. And I did that last year with the rhymes from the Wicked Nursery. 88 rhymes that are worthy of being in the Addams Family book collection.
Right, more work for every pen name you have, or you just let some of them slide. So yeah, definitely something to keep in mind.
I've seen people make it work. I couldn't make it work, so I'm not even going to try.
So you're very prolific on social media, reaching out to various audiences across multiple platforms. I mean, I've seen you on Instagram, I've read your blog, you're kind of all over the place. So can you tell us about your strategy and how you've developed this over time?
There is no strategy. It's just me expressing what moves me, what drives me. I describe my creative process, I mentioned it earlier, as exploring the different soul wells that you have. From a very young age, I learned that you could be 70 and still enjoy cartoons from my grandfather. From interacting with different kids, I've seen wisdom from an 8-year-old that is bone chilling, that they say stuff that you go like, wow. So yes, I am all over the place, but it all responds to something. The blog is mostly nonfiction, but it's me trying to have a positive impact. And it's me processing everything that we live through. Right now, the latest blog post is called Thoughts and Prayers. And it's trying to approach the gun situation of the country in a new creative way, just because I needed to process everything that we continue to live, because it's an awful thing that we see on the news every day. At the same time, I'm writing middle grade stories about the dream world, because we need that escapism. So I'm in touch with reality and processing reality. And at the same time, I write other stuff where I escape, because I think there's a place for all of it. People who know me know that I'm all over the place. When they ask for music recommendations, I go like, okay, so from what country do you want? Not just genre. I love enjoying as much diversity in life as possible, be it from the people that I know, the foods that I eat, the drinks that I drink, spirits that I indulge in, the books that I write, the movies that I watch, the games that I play. A lot of people play fighters, or they play first-person shooters or stuff like that. I also love reading a lot of independent work and consuming independent indie music, indie books. Go Indie Now from Joe Compton. I do reviews on indie video games and indie books and indie albums on his blog, because for me it's important to promote that. But it's also important to read Peter Pan and read Alice in Wonderland and read H.G. Wells and read Jules Verne and read, classics, and then read stuff that a lot of people are consuming just to try to understand it, and maybe you enjoy it. I've realized that not necessarily what wins a Pulitzer or wins a Nobel Prize is going to be my favorite book, but maybe the good book that inspired a bad movie could be one of my favorite reads.
That's lovely. And hilarious too. Which of your social media platforms do you think work best for you, and why?
Again, this has been an evolution and it depends on the audience. I haven't dropped any social media because I have some people that only see me here or there. So there's like this sense of responsibility of still entertaining or still connecting with people. Way back when I would have said Twitter just because I connected with so many people initially through there. Then it transitioned to YouTube and I was very active on Booktube and authortube like a couple of years back. I did the Hurricane Maria tag because I wasn't having an easy time, because I did that to try to get attention to the island and the people and just home, just try to help. And seeing that not get traction and then seeing people doing the tag just to get something that was popular, and then seeing that at the same time people were like and moaning of stuff that really for me didn't matter. So I dropped off the radar there a bit, and I'm trying to get back into it just because it's a different way to communicate. It's a different way to connect. The good thing about YouTube is that what people see on my videos is what people are going to get if they meet me in person. I've gotten that a lot. I've actually gotten people go like, man, you're even friendlier. And I'm like, I'm a hugger. So if you're up for hugs, I don't just go in and dive in. That's harassment. But if someone is a hugger or something like that, can I get a hug? And I'm like, sure, why not? A very cherished moment was mom was having chemo, and then I went and I just wanted to be in a session with her, and then I gave her like this really big hug, and then another lady was like, oh, I wish I could get a hug like that, and I'm like, I can give it to you right now. And she's like, but yeah. I'm like, seriously? And she's like, okay. So I gave her like a genuine hug, like, you know, and it's like saying it's okay and whatever. And then that uplifted them so much. But people get a true sense of who you are from YouTube. Some people have like their YouTube persona, and then you meet them in real life and it's like different. And you can do that, but I find that exhausting. And then with Instagram, it's just the one that I can be the most creative with. In terms of flexing creative muscles, that's the most fun for me, just because what I do on every day is a different challenge creatively. On Mondays, I do visual typos where I take a common word, I do a typo, and then I have to do a funny visual with it. To give you an example, I did Darth Maul, but instead of MAUL, I wrote it like mall as in the shopping mall, and then you have Darth Maul with a shopping cart. Super stupid. It's like a dad joke, you know, bonanza. On Tuesdays, I do dictionaries where I do definitions of words where they have the TY or TIE or something that has the T sound, reality. And I write the word T, and then I come up with a definition for that. And I'm actually working on a dictionary to eventually publish a dictionary. On Wednesdays, I do Sky Thoughts. Sky Thoughts is me trying to be inspirational and kind of sappy and whatnot, because I have that side to me. The pictures I take, and it's probably me taking the picture and writing the post in that moment. That's the shtick with that one. I want it to be that. I want to capture, I want to share that moment with people. You know, you're having a crappy day and you go like, you know what? I want to find a beautiful moment. Have a picture of a branch or something, write a little poem, write a little line or something to try to put something positive. On Thursdays, it's Sock It To Me. I have a ridiculous collection of socks. Today, it is Waldo. If you want to see how many socks I have, every Thursday I do Sock It To Me. On Fridays, I do Double O Bananas. I also do taste tests, and it's just different things to have fun and flex creative muscles. Because of the variety that I can enjoy on Instagram, that's the one that works the best for me. But is it the one that sells the most books? I don't know. Maybe. Audience from Puerto Rico, they respond most to Facebook. What rhyme or reason is there in that? There's none. I do have the account for TikTok. I haven't started because, first off, I'm not going to do a dance, and I would only dance for charity, and it would have a poll probably. So I haven't tried that because I haven't found a creative way to do it my way. Whatever I do in the different places, it's always a very me thing. Instagram is just very accessible for me to share a picture of what I'm watching or what I watched recently, what foods I'm going to try, what books I'm reading and stuff like that. It's just, it can be very quick. And that's also very appealing because this takes a lot of time. How much time from my life am I going to dedicate to X or Y thing? Twitter is the one where I still stream of thought it, and I have to be careful. It's like, how many tweets have I deleted in the last year? It's a lot. But it also teaches you to be responsible with what you say in a public setting. So right now, Instagram is the best. And I think it's, in terms of bang for your buck, it's the most entertaining.
I really like that you center all of your online presence around who you are actually, like authentically, like that is the driving force behind everything you do. So I find that really, really cool and really inspiring.
Thank you. In more than one event, people have said, can I take a picture with you and your socks? And I'm like, sure. There are pictures of me with, like, showing off the socks. I do not care.
So, in regards to marketing, there seems to be an infinite number of resources and tips. So, how do you funnel it down to what is useful for you?
Again, no rhyme or reason. I don't look at analytics. I am not the person to ask for this. There are some people. Shannon is super organized in this. I wish I had her level of discipline. I do not. And again, I'm not the person to ask for this. And when I sell, what I sell, and what connects, I could get granular and dissect it, but I'm moving on to the next thing. And I have so many projects and irons in the fire that I just don't pay attention to it. So what I do is just keep busy, and keeping busy keeps me happy. Not the person to ask for that. Ask Shannon, ask Joe from Go Indina, ask other people who know what they're doing. I'm just really winging it.
Well, I appreciate the kudos. And I think what works for you is that you are just open to trying anything and everything out there while staying your authentic self. We talked about that YouTube personality, and I sort of have to step into a YouTube personality in order to do my videos, because otherwise I sit there at the video at the camera and I don't even smile. So it happened in my first like 10 videos.
A lot of people cringe at their older videos. I just cringe because I can see less gray hairs, and the places where the hair has thinned, I can see luscious locks.
Yeah, well, that's where you dye your hair, you get rid of that.
No, I'm gonna salt and pepper.
Are you?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think I'm rocking it pretty good. My wife likes it, so why stop?
Then shifting from marketing to your own writing life and work style, how much time do you spend working as an author versus writing related stuff like editing, finding readers and reviewers, your various social media platforms? How do you fit writing into all that?
You have to carve time in the morning. A lot of my books I've written in lunch hours at work. Since we've changed to work from home, that's disrupted my process completely. And I'm only now starting to get back into a group because I write by hand. And so basically my method, with the exception of nonfiction, is that I write by hand, I transcribe, that's the first editing process. Then I edit again, then I edit again, then I share with people, I edit one last time, and I publish. Lunchtime works, and when inspiration really strikes, you just go with it. And I go, babe, today, whatever plans we had, whatever we were going to watch, eat, or whatever, that's not going to happen. I'm going to make up for it. Some people have a set place, a set time, and that works for them. For me, literally, I was struggling with a recent short story from my Spanish horror short story collection that I'm going to be releasing soon. Struggling, and I wanted that last story to have full collection and whatnot. Struggling. Realized during one of the walks that I just had to switch the POV and rewrite the whole thing. Okay, so how long is that going to take? It took 45 minutes. Something that I was struggling with for weeks. In 45 minutes, I just banged it out. And that's just a reminder that I am that type of person that, yes, I am all over the place, but when I become hyper focused, it's almost a superpower. And I can get a lot done in 15 minutes, in half an hour, and 40 minutes. Because if you're writing in your lunchtime, that means that you're scarfing down your food or eating while chewing while writing and stuff like that. And you have to make every minute count. And that's what's worked for me. It's not that every morning I write. It's not that every lunch session, lunch date with myself, I'm writing. It's that when I sit down and write, it's either seeing what flows or getting down to business. I don't think I have another switch. It's just very free flowing, or like a sniper. It's ridiculous. And I've done that so many times. Shadow of the Human is the sequel to Only Human. And basically the last 8 chapters I wrote maybe 2 weeks, maybe a week and a half. And the other part took me a year. Even in that sense, it's part of my personality. What's really interesting is making it all cohesive and making it all feel as if you wrote it in one setting and in one go. And I think that's where a lot of the craft comes in.
So when you are writing your fiction works, what comes first for you? The characters, the setting, or the plot?
The idea. I've had stories where I saw something that the place and the setting was so intense that's what drove the narrative. A lot of what I do is character centered or experience and humanity centered. I wanted to explore one of my short stories in 2020 and 2020 is called Journeyman. It's about a boxer. A journeyman is someone who's been boxing for a long time. They're at the tail end of their career, and they're normally gatekeepers, and they try to put them with younger opposition to bolster this other person's resume. So I wanted to write that, and I was really focusing on the experience, and the experience fed the character versus the name of the character and blah, 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 blah. So it depends on the story and depends on the project. What's interesting is focusing on different things taps into different parts of your narrative style and different stories within. By changing the setting of one short story, I made something work that was character driven and it didn't have to be. So it's just being at the service of the story and being at the service of the central idea is always what drives me. Sometimes the central idea is that you want this man, woman, child to do X or Y thing. That just goes to show that I'm not formulaic in the way that I approach a story.
Do you have a favorite genre of all the ones you published in, or do you have a specific genre that keeps sneaking into your works, like horror in your urban fantasies?
Fantasy is always something that seeps in. Horror, the horror that I write and the middle grade that I write, fantasy always goes like, hi, I'm still here. It's just something that offers you so many doors, so many pathways, and so many possibilities that it's always a lot of fun to add a little sprinkle of that.
I know there are some people who don't like to start a series if the whole thing is not complete. So your series, The Human Cycle, is it complete at 2 books? And if not, how many more books will you add to the series?
One more book, Beyond Human. It's going to be the exploration of the spiritual aspect of all the things that have happened in Only Human and Shadow of a Human. Due date, I will not give a due date. Right now, I am in the mode of finishing my current project. My current project is the horror short story in Spanish, which I'm transcribing. 2020, which is the Spanish version of 2020, which I'm translating right now. And I'm also working on an English short story collection where I'm landing the different concepts and the different ideas that I'm going to explore. And after that, I also finally identified an artist to work on my middle grade short stories, the second volume of the Daydreams on the Sherbet Shore. Yes, it's a lot of things that I'm doing, but one is transcribing, the other one is translating, the other one is actual writing, and the other one is identifying people to develop the artwork. So even though I'm working on 4 projects, technically I'm only working on 1 in terms of what I'm producing. Beyond Human, I'm not gonna say that it's 3/4 of the way done, the first draft. So how long will that take me to finish, edit, and bring to where I want to? I don't know. I'm working on it. I can tell you that much.
So your Human Cycle will fall into that cliche trilogy you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, originally it was going to be a tetralogy. It wasn't working. It made sense to explore body, mind, psyche, and soul and spirituality. And when I landed on the ending that was going to be, I was like, that's the ending. If you're writing a series, no matter if it's duology, trilogy, 7 books or whatever, knowing how it's going to end, it just lets you adjust the course enough or to tell you, okay, dude, you strayed way too far. Now we got to bring it back in. So it's taken so long because it's me bringing it back in, deciding which of the Easter eggs I wanna include, what answers I'm gonna give, which I'm gonna keep to myself, because some people want all the answers, and that takes away from the charm of any book. It's like you can't have all the answers. That's no fun.
No, I totally understand that. I wouldn't give anything away either on mine. What is a genre you haven't published in that you might want to try in the future?
I have a sci-fi novella that I stopped writing because I gave to beta read to 2 people, and the 2 people had the same exact feedback, and these people do not know each other, and that freaked me out. I was like, that's not good. So eventually I will retake that and do it justice and do the adjustments that I have to do. That requires some research when it comes to science fiction. Depends on how hard of a science fiction you want. You have to do more research and just do things right. And I'm writing that type of story to do justice to the narrative, because I want that story, the ending of that story and the center of that story is so important to me, and that I really need to do it right. Other stuff, who knows, maybe I'll write a kung fu novel.
I would certainly love to read that. You mentioned that you were working on Beyond Human. Is there anything else that's coming down the pipeline from you that you have a set date for that you want to talk to us about, or do you just want to leave it as Being Human will come in TBD?
Beyond Human, hopefully it'll be released sometime in 2022. I give no guarantees for that. What I can guarantee is that the second volume of the Daydreams on the Sherbet Shore, which is middle grade short stories that take place in the world of Draim, which is the dream world, that will be released. Not sure how soon, because it depends on how fast the artist can work. So I have that. I have the horror short story collection, Spanish short story collection called Penumbra. It's something that I've been working on for a while. That should be done in the next 3 or 4 months. Also, the all Spanish version of 2020 will be released as well. As for Storytime with JD Estrada, I want to finish that this year. It's a project that I had marinating, but hopefully that'll be done this year as well. So that. In terms of other projects, I'm not going to talk about other projects, because then people are going to go like, he's really all over the place and he's not going to do anything. So next 3 to 4 months, those are like 3 or 4 releases that I'm not guaranteeing, but I'm feeling good about. And by the end of the year, who knows?
So we could possibly just say, yeah, there's going to be at least one JD Estrada release this year sometime.
There's going to be probably 3 releases
3.
at least. And we're halfway through the year. So I feel comfortable saying that in the next 6 months, 3 releases is a very real possibility.
That's great. So people can look forward to that. Well, thank you so much for answering all of our questions. But before we wrap up, can you tell our listeners where they can find you and purchase your books?
JD Estrada Writer. Look for that on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube. My books are on the Zon because it's the easiest right now. I will be pushing to be going wide soon, but until that's proper news, it'll just be speculation. And if you want to get my books signed and dedicated and you live in either Puerto Rico or the States, there's a local bookshop in Puerto Rico called Tazas y Portadas. Lovely people. And every dedication is different because I signed it and I took a day to make every single dedication of the 40 plus books that I took to the store different.
Wow. Well, thank you for letting us know where we can find your books, and I almost feel like I need to hop on a plane, go down to Puerto Rico to get one of those.
Well, they do ship stateside.
They do. Oh, okay, they do. Okay. Well, that's great to know. You'll have to make sure you share that link with us so we can put it into our show notes and description box.
Count on that.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today and giving us all of your insight and experience into your self-publishing life and how you market yourself and your author brand. And thank you so much to our listeners and viewers. On September 1st, we're going to have Lauren Adele, author of Hunted, The Immortal's Kiss, YouTuber, poet, and coffee addict. And that will end our show for today. Bye, everyone.